In the name of the one, holy, and undivided Trinity. Amen. Before I get into this sermon, I'm making the assumption that we're generally feeling all pretty distressed this week. And my therapist taught me a technique that I want to teach to you, and this will make sense in a little bit. So for most of us, our nervous systems are just on alert. There is this thing you can do when you feel yourself getting into that space that she calls silencing the alarm, and there are good neurobiological reasons for this. But if you want to try it, all you do is take your hand, run it over your forehead, around your ear, and all the way down your arm. You do the same thing on the other side, all the way across your forehead, around your ear, not breaking contact, down your neck, and down the side of your arm. And this, there are some nervous system hacks. There are some reasons why this tells your body that you're safe. But I wanted to offer that to you both this morning, especially in this place where we come for refuge and safety, but also during the course of this news cycle. Today, in the reading from Job, we hear that he persisted in his integrity. And integrity does require persistence in a way that charity does not. Integrity is what is built over time, action by action, decision by decision. It is unaffected by whether or not we are viewed doing what we do. Integrity isn't often showy, it's not often public, but most of us can sense when we're living in it and when we're not. We all have little body signals that tell us when we're doing something outside of our values. We are told that Job stood in his integrity, even when tempted to leave it. Did you grow up believing in integrity as a value? That integrity was something we looked for in our leaders, whether there's church leaders or our bosses or our political leaders? I did. I was taught that when I was little. I assumed that moral uprightness and consistency between personal and public behavior were our common standards. But then when I was 11, I watched Anita Hill testify for days. I would watch the news, come home and watch the news. This did not make me a popular sixth grader. There just weren't any other sixth graders who were obsessed with this. They were not riveted by that news story. But I knew somehow in my child brain that something was happening, and that something meant that my body was worth less than boys' bodies. And I wonder today about what our children are learning about integrity, about the integrity of their bodies and their souls. I heard we were having a stewardship sermon. It's October, right? It's the first Sunday in October. Yes, this is a stewardship sermon. I also want to say that they're all stewardship sermons. All of them, no matter what we're talking about. This week, we're also talking about, in this national dialogue, the stewardship of women's bodies. Right? That is a stewardship issue. And I believe that the crisis of integrity we are facing in public matters when we're talking here about money and our church and ourselves. And I actually feel more urgency right now, more than ever, to make sure that I am living in my own integrity as a way to not go crazy and as a way to not give up. So today we're going to talk about money, stewardship of money. But just a reminder, it's all stewardship. We talk about stewardship of souls, of the earth, of the body, of the church, of the truth. But today we're going to talk about money. Often the squirmiest subject of them all, the one we hide the most often, when we don't talk with other people about. Sometimes we're embarrassed by our abundance and don't want people to know how much money we have. Sometimes we're embarrassed about our poverty and don't want people to know how little we have. Somehow, though, like everything else, being honest about it does help us live in integrity. And yes, this is the beginning of the annual October Begathon. It is the month we talk explicitly about money, about the fact that the church needs money to do its work. And we ask for money to continue to do God's work in the university district. And for many years, I've talked about dollar amounts. You know, we sort of have the mental picture of the thermometer that we keep filling, to keep our goal. How much the church needs to get its work done. But I was actually convicted this week by a deeper question. I've been unsettled by it, and I'm going to invite you into this unsettling. Most of us know the dollar amount that we give to the church. Most of us have that number, or a rough approximation. But do we know the percentage we give to the church? The percentage of our income? And is that percentage the amount that God is calling us to give? So for myself, I sat down and figured it out. This past year, our pledge was $3,750. That is 5% of my gross salary. Aaron also works for a diocesan ministry, and we gave about 5% of his salary to that ministry also, mostly in in-kind donations. And if you are thinking, hey, that's only half of the tithe, you would be correct. Good math. It is a half of the biblical request of a tenth. And in fact, the scriptures tell us that we can't even count alms until after the tithe. The tithe is just expected, and it's when we give above that that God counts it as charity. The Bible's a little intense sometimes. My family's pledge to Christ Church is about a third of what we pay in student loans every year. For us, it won't be possible to reach the tithe until our student loan burden ends. But we still give in a way that we notice. It's an amount that does affect our monthly budget and what we're able to do. It limits what the world considers freedom, which is the freedom to do whatever we feel like doing. But it actually opens us up to freedom in God. I don't know if you, like me, ever spend money to feel a little better. at the end of a 14-hour workday, exhausted, just wanting a little dopamine hit. Maybe just one little dress ordered on the internet, and it's framed as a treat or a reward for being so tired or for working so hard or for biting my tongue when I wanted to snap at my son or my spouse. For a while in my life, after I was first working as a priest, I was so enamored of having a real salary for the first time in my life and health insurance, I went a little nuts. Not like terribly nuts, no, piling credit card debt or anything, but just buying things because I could. Like if the fancy cookies weren't on sale at Safeway, I would buy them anyway. So luxurious. If I wanted to go to a fancy dinner for my birthday, I'd do it. So I did that for a while. But after a while, it started to not feel so good. There was a part of my soul that was just nagging at me, asking me if the temporary pleasure I was receiving was worth the money. Especially when I really did know places that money could be used. Somehow, in this process of indulging the nice things I had wanted for so long and yearned for, my integrity got involved. And I had to ask the question, was my money saying the same thing my mouth was? The Bible tells us to work, pray, and give. Not work, pray, or give. I felt pretty confident my work was to God's glory, and I felt pretty sure that my praying was to God's glory. But I was no longer certain that my giving was to God's glory. And since then, I have been working on it. I'm not perfectly healed around money yet, nor living completely in my integrity about it. Many of you are much further on this path than I am, and I am grateful for you lighting the way. I am still converting to the person that I want to be, where how I use my money is completely in line with my values. And I'm asking you to join me in that process of conversion, of getting to a place where I know that my labor and the money I receive for it is being given in a way that pleases God. I suspect, too, that the Jesus who told us that how we accept and love children is how we accept and love God is telling us something about stewardship. Children are relentless givers of time, noise, attention, love, affection. And we're evaluated by our ability to imitate this relentless giving, the way that God gives, and by our ability to accept the relentless gifts of children and of God. In a world in a crisis of integrity, one that we are mourning and figuring out how to survive together, we can make another world of integrity together. Being transformed in this holy place, living in line with our values, letting God transform how we live together, from our thoughts, our hearts, to our money and our time. What they want from us right now is for us to feel alone, to curl up, to protect our individual selves and our individual stuff. And one of the routes of healing in a fearful time is to give and to trust. To be together. To work together. I definitely know that my reptile brain is telling me to batten down the hatches and hide and protect my own. But the communion of saints that stretch all the way back, the communion of saints who worshiped here, the lineage of our faith, are coaxing me out of that fear cave, saying, it has been this bad before, and we survived. We trusted God and each other. You can too. I'm going to close with a prayer that our bishop taught us at the leadership conference we went to this week. Holy One, we know that we cannot serve both you and our wealth. We will put our trust in one or the other. By serving you, we are saying that we trust you, that we love you, that we choose you. When you look at what we hold back, perhaps you wonder about that. Help us to give, Lord, for our own sakes, so that we can be free from the God of wealth, and so that we can find joy in our service for you. Amen.